Ethics of nuclear power. Nuclear power has begun to play a large role in our lives since it was invented. With such reliance, there are bound to be mistakes. Risks and dangers of nuclear energy sources. Nuclear plants have very little risks as precautions are taken, but could potentially have very large consequences if mistakes do happen. Most recent disaster was in Fukushima nuclear power plant losing its power in 2011. The most infamous nuclear disaster was Chernobyl, Ukraine, which is still facing repercussions from the meltdown in 1986. Nuclear disasters are significant because the waste still remains radiotoxic for several 100,000 years. Radioactive or nuclear waste is a byproduct from nuclear reactors, fuel processing plants, hospitals, and research facilities. Radioactive waste is also generated while decommissioning and dismantling nuclear reactors and other nuclear facilities. Waste is classified on high and low levels. Most waste can, however, be stored and recycled to be used for other nuclear power purposes. Many regulations and precautions are taken into account to deal with this waste. Lack of knowledge about nuclear power has led to ill-informed public opinion as well as uncertainty towards rules and regulations from the government. Many people fear nuclear plants because of major incidents in the past. These fears are not misplaced and must be factored into the ethics of nuclear energy. Examples of disasters happening already. In 1986, the worst nuclear disaster in history happened in northern Ukraine in the city of Chernobyl. Even today, effects are still being felt from the event, and scientists estimate it will be another 20,000 years before the area is inhabitable again. Due to failed inspection of the capacity of one of the power plants, power surged into the reactor, causing a series of explosions, exposing the nuclear core and releasing radioactive material into the atmosphere. This meltdown was a result of poor employment and regulation in the plant, and it was not much of a surprise that the fallout happened. Even after the initial meltdown, the action taken was poor and too late, which led to even more casualties. The USSR attempted to cover up the disaster and was only forced to release a statement about the disaster after radiation had reached surrounding countries. Disasters such as this have rarely happened before or since this accident, with the most happening in Japan after earthquakes and tsunamis disrupted the power in multiple plants. However, there are no deaths and minimal damage done during these incidents. Nonetheless, there is considerably high risk given with the use of nuclear power. Risks and dangers of continuing with current energy sources such as oil and natural gas. Even with the risks of nuclear power, it is still a very effective energy source and has the potential to provide a multitude of power for lifetimes with considerably less waste and repercussions given knowledge and research done on the subject. The ethics of this discussion boils down to the alternative energy resources, which would be to continue to use current means to provide energy, which would be oil and natural gas from the earth. The trouble comes with these being non-renewable resources that will eventually reach the end, as well as dangerous emissions that can change the earth and its environment. The question is now brought up of which is worse, the risk of nuclear power or the impeding consequences of oil and natural gas. Given time, effort, money, and resources, nuclear power can be a sustainable, low-risk power source. However, are people willing to give those things up to achieve something they may consider valuable or high priority?